All right, well, I'm about to turn eastbound on Highway 90. And we're right here at I-10 to 98. We're looking, that's going to be northbound toward the Bass Pro Shop in Spanish Fort. And so this is going to be part one of Lake Forest. Lake Forest is one of the biggest subdivisions in the state of Alabama, and it may even be the biggest one. At least that's what I've been told. And this is Jubilee Square Shopping Center, and so I'm going to be turning here as well. A lot of that's hid back there in the back. That's actually a pretty good sized shopping mall. It's got some restaurants in it, a lot of stores. I think it still has a movie theater in the back. There's a Starbucks. And so I'm fixing to turn right onto this. It's called North Main Street. But really, this is what a lot of us old heads call Old 98, because this was a 2-lane road before the 4-lane was built that went all the way into Spanish Fort and crossed and topped the hill up there. And so I think this was the primary road to get to Daphne and Fairhope all the way up until the early 70s. And so most of it's still here, but they, cut it off and they added this 4-lane there to the right. You can see it runs parallel to this, so we're looking at 98 to the right. And we're about to cross Dolive Creek. It's also called Alligator Alley here. It's a pretty good walkway. It's pretty wide, and it's a good little walking area too. It goes all the way back up to close to the scenic overlook. It's got parking right there for it. And so a lot of people will use this to cut across to get into 98 there. I've got Eddie's Pawn Shop, which you can cross into that as well. And so we're going to be going into the old entrance, as I call it. This was the very first entrance put in. And this is where some of the older houses are as well. And it's also called Dolive Boulevard here. Some of the first houses in this area here were built probably in the late 50s. And it started really taking off, Lake Forest, probably in the 60s. This is called Lake Forest Boulevard. But there are some newer houses even in this older part. Now up on top of the hill, that big building right there is Loma Alta Towers. That's a condo complex. So you can see some of these older houses in here. I've actually done a few inspections in this part of the neighborhood. And you're going to see a wide variety of different houses all through Lake Forest, both old and new, and both large and small. I'm trying to think if that might have been the one right there. I can't remember. It's been so long since I've done some of these inspections back in here. But I will say that some of the oldest houses are in this part of the neighborhood. Lake Forest has 4 entrances and exits, I guess you could say. There's 2 on the west side, 1 on the north side, and 1 on the east side. And so depending on what area of the neighborhood you purchased a house in, it would be probably the exit or entrance you'd want to take. This is a very large neighborhood. It's a rolling neighborhood as well. As you can see, a lot of hills. And so what we're coming up on the back side of are some of the Loma Alta town homes. Now I have inspected a few of those as well. Those were built in the 1980s. And so just so you'll know, at one time, Lake Forest was really considered kind of sort of part of Spanish Fort, because before Daphne took over this, the fire department was called the Lake Forest Spanish Fort Volunteer Fire Department. And I believe that was probably back in the early 80s. I mean, early 70s. So it's a mix of kind of sort of everything in here, both condos, townhomes, residential houses, and both old and new. And of course, you have to really be careful with how you travel this neighborhood too, because there's some blind spots over these hills, and especially when you're coming up here to this Tower Drive. But there's a lot of main roads that run through Lake Forest where the driveways, you know, come out onto the main roads, and there's some blind spots, you know, in those areas. And so that's something you might want to consider if you're looking for a house in here, you know, about the traffic patterns in this neighborhood. But that goes with any neighborhood in all this area on the Eastern Shore. I think the first and primary focus that I would have would be, what are the traffic patterns in that neighborhood, because it can take you hours to get out of some of these locations, you know, depending on how far you got to go to work. Well, it could probably take you 20 minutes or longer to get out of your neighborhood. So, you know, I figured you could kind of sort of see, this would be a good thing to show as well. Let me roll the window down and see. Really good views, as you can see. Now these houses here are some of them are in the 50s. And here's typical ranch style homes. There wasn't that many builders back then, so I've been doing these inspections long enough to kind of tell, you know, who the builder was in a lot of cases. A lot of them had fireplaces. You can see they're kind of unique designs. Not no one house is quite the same. This is Lakeshore Drive. That's kind of a unique roof line there. So I'm starting to see a lot of houses with newer roofs, because there's a lot of trees inside Lake Forest, and Hurricane Sally took a lot of them down and put them on people's roofs. I remember driving through here. It's part of the golf course. And here's some more townhomes back here in the back. It's really tight back here as well. And that's the Lake Forest Lake. That actually drains to Dolive Creek that we crossed over earlier. This pretty much just comes down to a cul-de-sac here in the back. I believe these were probably built in the 1980s as well. Some of them could have been built in the 90s. And that's pretty much it. Just comes to this cul-de-sac here in the back. That's some more apartments on the other side. You get to those on the old 98 back there. So anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one short. This is gonna be part one. There's really gonna be, you know, too much of this to put it all in one episode, and so it'd be easier for you to watch these as well if I break them up into maybe 4 parts. But yeah, if you want to see the rest of these on Lake Forest, just go into the playlist and check them out, buddy. Thanks, guys.